Ma'am, it's the police. Can you come to the door?
Stop! Stop!
Get back! Get back!
I'm hit. No, I'm good. Returning fire.
Okay, 214, shots fired.
Need units and medics. Make sure resident firing through the
Units
door.
en route. Hold
Drop the
position.
gun.
This man's hatred for police was so consuming that when officers came to his door, he didn't just open fire on them. He killed his own mother in the process. Before we continue, let me take this opportunity to thank you so much for supporting our channel. Just choosing to watch our video means a lot to us. Before we go any further, tell us, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this is your first time here. His name was Trevor Calloway, a 32-year-old with a rap sheet that read like a manual on how to destroy your life. Assault, drug possession, resisting arrest, and one charge that stood out among the rest, attempted murder of a police officer 3 years prior. He'd served time, but prison hadn't rehabilitated him. It had only deepened his rage. Trevor lived in a modest 2-bedroom house in rural Pennsylvania with the one person who refused to abandon him, his mother, Patricia Calloway, 61 years old, a retired nurse who had spent decades helping others. She had raised Trevor alone after his father left when he was 7. She had visited him every week when he was incarcerated. She had welcomed him back into her home when no one else would. Patricia believed in second chances. She believed her son could change. She was wrong. On the morning of March 14th, neighbors heard shouting coming from the Calloway residence. It wasn't unusual. Trevor's outbursts had become a regular occurrence over the past 6 months since his release. But this time, the shouting was different, louder, more violent. One neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chen, called 911 when she heard what sounded like furniture being thrown. "There's a disturbance next door," she told the dispatcher. "I think someone might be getting hurt." 2 patrol officers were dispatched to the scene. Officers Ryan Booth and Jennifer Mills had no idea what they were walking into. The dispatch notes mentioned a possible domestic disturbance, nothing more. There was no warning that Trevor Calloway lived at that address, no alert that he had a history of violence against law enforcement. When the patrol car pulled up to the house at 10:47 a.m., everything appeared calm from the outside. The lawn was neatly trimmed. Patricia's car sat in the driveway. But inside, Trevor had seen them arrive, and something inside him snapped. He had been arguing with his mother about money. She had refused to give him cash for what she suspected was drugs. Trevor had grown increasingly aggressive, backing her into a corner of the living room, screaming inches from her face. When Patricia threatened to call the police herself, Trevor grabbed her by the shoulders and shoved her hard against the wall. That's when he heard the car doors slam outside. Trevor's paranoia took over completely. In his mind, his mother had already called them. She had betrayed him. She was working with them. All the delusions and conspiracy theories that had festered in his mind during his prison years came flooding back. He ran to his bedroom and grabbed the semi-automatic pistol he'd illegally purchased 2 months earlier. Patricia followed him, begging him to stop, to think, to put the gun away. But Trevor wasn't listening anymore. Officers Booth and Mills approached the front door, unaware that on the other side, an armed man with a vendetta against police was loading his weapon. What happened next would take less than 90 seconds, but those 90 seconds would shatter multiple lives and expose a tragedy that could have been prevented. Trevor Calloway's hatred for police didn't appear overnight. It had been building for over a decade, fed by his own choices and a twisted sense of victimhood that he wore like armor. His first arrest came at 19, a bar fight that escalated when officers arrived. Instead of complying, Trevor swung at one of the responding officers, earning himself an assault charge and his first taste of jail. He served 6 months. When he got out, he told his mother the cops had provoked him. that they'd used excessive force, that the system was rigged against people like him. Patricia wanted to believe her son. She had seen news stories about police misconduct. She knew the world wasn't always fair, so she gave him the benefit of the doubt. Over the next several years, the arrests continued. Possession of methamphetamine at 23, breaking and entering at 25. Each time, Trevor blamed the police. Each time, Patricia stood by him, hired lawyers she couldn't afford, and welcomed him back into her home with no one else would. Patricia believed in second chances. She believed her son could change. She was wrong.
Santos fired twice, hitting Trevor once in the shoulder. Trevor survived. The gun he'd been reaching for, a loaded .38 revolver, was found in his glove box. He was charged with attempted murder of a police officer, aggravated assault, and weapons violations. The evidence was overwhelming. Dashcam footage showed everything. He was sentenced to 3 years in state prison. During those 3 years, Patricia visited every single week. She brought him books, magazines, home-cooked meals when allowed. She wrote him letters telling him she loved him, that she was praying for him, that he could turn his life around when he got out. Trevor's letters back to her told a different story. Page after page of conspiracy theories, rants about how police were corrupt, how the system was designed to destroy men like him, how Officer Santos had tried to execute him in cold blood, and the dashcam footage had been edited to cover it up. Patricia tried to reason with him. She gently suggested that maybe, just maybe, he needed to take responsibility for his actions, that perhaps therapy or anger management could help. Trevor accused her of taking their side. When he was released in January, Patricia picked him up from the prison gates. She had prepared his old room. She had stocked the fridge with his favorite foods. She had even lined up a potential job for him at a warehouse through a friend from church. For the first month, things seemed okay. Trevor was quiet, withdrawn, but not violent. He went to his parole meetings. He applied for a few jobs. Patricia allowed herself to hope. But by February, the cracks started showing. Trevor couldn't keep the warehouse job. He got into an argument with a supervisor and walked off the shift. He stopped going to parole meetings. He started disappearing for hours, coming home with dilated pupils and paranoid energy. Patricia confronted him about the drug use. He denied it, then admitted it, then blamed her for stressing him out. She told him he needed to follow his parole conditions or he'd end up back in prison. "I'm not going back to that cage," he told her. His voice was cold, empty. "I'll die before I let them take me again." She should have called his parole officer right then. She should have recognized that statement for what it was, a warning. But Patricia still believed in her son. She still thought love could save him. In early March, Trevor's behavior became more erratic. He started talking about how police were watching the house, how helicopters were circling overhead at night, how his mother's phone was probably tapped. Patricia knew these were delusions, likely fueled by whatever drugs he was using. She begged him to get help, to see a doctor, to let her take him to the hospital. He refused. On March 13th, the day before officers would arrive at their door, Patricia made a decision. She told Trevor she wouldn't give him any more money, that if he wanted to live in her house, he needed to get clean and follow the rules. Trevor's response was chilling. He stared at her for a long moment, then said, "You're just like them now. You're one of them." Patricia didn't sleep that night. She lay awake in her bedroom, door locked, wondering if she should call someone, wondering if her son had finally become someone she couldn't save. By morning, she still hadn't made the call. She thought maybe after he slept it off they could talk rationally. She thought there was still time. There wasn't. The argument started over $40. Trevor came into the kitchen that morning demanding cash. His hands were shaking. His eyes were bloodshot. Patricia was making coffee, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy in a house that felt like it was collapsing around her.
"I need money," Trevor said. Not asked, demanded. Patricia turned to face him. She had barely slept. She was exhausted from years of this cycle, this endless loop of hope and disappointment, and something in her finally broke. "No," she said simply. Trevor's face contorted. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean no, Trevor. I'm not giving you money for drugs. Not anymore." He moved closer to her, invading her space. Patricia could smell the stale sweat, the chemical odor that clung to him. This wasn't her little boy anymore. This was a stranger wearing her son's face. "You owe me," he hissed. "After everything I've been through, after what they did to me, you owe me."
Patricia stood her ground. Her heart was pounding, but she kept her voice steady. "I don't owe you anything, Trevor. I've given you everything, but I won't help you destroy yourself." That's when he shoved her. It wasn't hard enough to knock her down, but it was hard enough to send her stumbling backward into the counter. The coffee mug she'd been holding shattered on the floor. Patricia gasped, more from shock than pain. "Don't you ever say no to me," Trevor said. His voice was low, dangerous. "This is my house, too." "It's my house," Patricia corrected him, finding her courage. "And if you ever put your hands on me again, I'm calling the police." The word police triggered something in Trevor. His entire body tensed. He grabbed a chair from the kitchen table and hurled it across the room. It crashed into the wall, leaving a dent in the drywall. Patricia backed toward the living room, her instinct telling her to create distance. Trevor followed, his rant escalating into incoherent rage. He was talking about cops, about conspiracies, about how everyone had betrayed him. He picked up a lamp and smashed it against the floor. Next door, Mrs. Chen heard the crash. She had been watering her plants near the window that faced the Calloway house. She had known Patricia for 15 years. Sweet woman, always said hello, always brought over cookies during the holidays. Mrs. Chen had also seen Trevor, had noticed his strange behavior, had heard the fights. When she heard Patricia scream, a sharp of fear, Mrs. Chen didn't hesitate. She picked up her phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? There's a fight next door. Someone's being hurt. I can hear things breaking. The dispatcher took down the address, confirmed the location, and sent out the call. Possible domestic disturbance, possible assault in progress. Officers Ryan Booth and Jennifer Mills were 3 blocks away when the call came through their radio. Booth, 34, had been on the force for 9 years. Mills, 28, had been his partner for 6 months. They had handled dozens of domestic calls together. Most ended peacefully. Some didn't. Responding to 847 Maple Drive, Booth radioed back. Inside the house, Trevor had backed Patricia into the corner of the living room. He wasn't hitting her, but he was screaming inches from her face, his fists clenched. Spit flew from his mouth as he accused her of plotting against him, of working with the police, of trying to send him back to prison. "Trevor, please," Patricia begged. Tears were streaming down her face. "I'm your mother. I love you. Please, just calm down." "You don't love me," he spat back. "If you loved me, you'd help me. You'd be on my side." "I am on your side. I've always been on your side." Trevor's laugh was bitter, unhinged. "Then prove it. Call them off." "Call who off?" "The cops. I know you called them." "I didn't call anyone, Trevor. I swear." But at that exact moment, Trevor heard something that confirmed all his paranoid delusions. The sound of a car pulling up outside, the slam of car doors, the unmistakable crackle of police radios. His face went white, then red with rage. He looked at his mother with pure hatred. "You lying!" He didn't finish the sentence. He turned and ran toward his bedroom. Patricia knew exactly what he was going for. She followed him, desperation overriding fear. "Trevor, no! Don't! They're just here to check on us! Don't do this!" Trevor yanked open his nightstand drawer and pulled out the semi-automatic pistol. He checked the magazine, 15 rounds. He slammed it back in and chambered a round. Patricia grabbed his arm. "Please, baby, please don't. Just talk to them. Just explain. They'll understand." He shook her off violently, sending her stumbling against his bed. "They won't take me alive," he said. His voice was eerily calm now. "I told you I'll die first." Outside, Officers Booth and Mills were approaching the front door. They had no idea that behind that door, an armed man with a history of violence against police was preparing for war. Officer Booth raised his hand to knock, and in that moment, everything that could have been prevented became inevitable.
Officer Booth knocked 3 times. Firm, professional. "Police, we received a call about a disturbance. Is everything all right in there?" Inside, Trevor heard the knock, and something inside him shattered completely. Every rational thought evaporated. Every warning his mother had ever given him disappeared. All that remained was rage and paranoia and the cold weight of the gun in his hand. Patricia was still in Trevor's bedroom doorway, her hands raised in a pleading gesture. "Trevor, listen to me. Put the gun down. Just talk to them. This doesn't have to—" "Shut up!" Trevor screamed. He moved toward the front of the house, the gun held low at his side. Patricia followed, her voice breaking as she begged him to stop. Officer Booth knocked again. "Sir, ma'am, we need to speak with you." Trevor stopped in the hallway, just out of sight from the front door. His breathing was rapid, shallow. His finger moved to the trigger. Patricia saw it, and her maternal instinct overrode everything else. She stepped between her son and the front door. "Trevor, I'm not letting you do this," she said. Her voice was trembling but determined. "You'll have to go through me." For a split second, something flickered in Trevor's eyes. Recognition, maybe even love. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, swallowed by the darkness that had consumed him. "Move," he said. "No!" Outside, Officer Mills was looking through the front window, trying to see inside. She couldn't see much through the curtains, but she noticed movement. "Someone's home," she told Booth. Booth tried the door handle, locked. He knocked one more time, louder. "This is the police. We need you to open the door." That's when Trevor made his decision. He tried to push past his mother to get a clear line to the door. Patricia grabbed his arm, the one holding the gun, trying to force it down. "Let go!" Trevor shouted. "Put it down, please!" They struggled. Trevor was stronger, fueled by adrenaline and drugs. He wrenched his arm free, and in that moment of chaos, his finger was already on the trigger. The first shot was an accident, but it was also inevitable. The gun went off with a deafening crack. The bullet struck Patricia in the chest at point-blank range. Her eyes went wide with shock. She stumbled backward, her hand reaching for the wound, blood already spreading across her blouse. "Mom?" Trevor's voice cracked. For one horrifying second, he realized what he'd done. Patricia collapsed to the floor, her breathing ragged and wet. Outside, Officers Booth and Mills heard the gunshot and immediately drew their weapons. "Shots fired!" Booth yelled into his radio. "We need backup now!" Mills was already moving to the side of the house, finding cover. Booth took position behind their patrol car. Both officers' hearts were racing. A domestic call had just turned into an active shooter situation. Inside, Trevor looked down at his mother bleeding on the floor. He could have stopped. He could have dropped the gun, called for help, tried to save her. But the part of Trevor that might have made that choice was gone. Instead, he blamed them, the police. This was their fault. They had forced his hand. They had made him do this. He raised his gun and fired 3 rounds through the front door. The bullets punched through the wood, missing Officer Booth by inches as he crouched behind the patrol car. Mills returned fire through the window, her training taking over. 2 controlled shots aimed at the threat. Trevor ducked behind the wall, then blind fired again. More rounds through the door, through the window. Glass shattered, wood splintered. Patricia was still alive, barely. She was trying to speak, trying to call out to her son, but blood was filling her lungs. Each breath was a struggle. She reached one trembling hand toward Trevor, but he couldn't see her anymore. All he could see were the enemy outside. The shootout lasted less than 30 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Trevor fired until his magazine was empty. 15 rounds sprayed wildly through the front of the house. Officers Booth and Mills maintained their positions, returning fire only when they had clear sight of the threat. When Trevor's gun clicked empty, there was a moment of terrible silence. Just the sound of car alarms triggered by the gunfire, distant sirens approaching, and Patricia's wet, labored breathing. Trevor looked down at the empty pistol in his hand. Then he looked at his mother. She was pale, her lips moving wordlessly. Her eyes found him one last time.
Patricia's sister, Trevor's aunt, gave a victim impact statement that left the courtroom in silence. "My sister spent her entire life trying to She mouthed 2 words. "I'm sorry." Not, "I hate you," not, "How could you?" Just, "I'm sorry." Apologizing to the son who had just shot her, the son she had never stopped trying to save. Trevor dropped the gun and sank to his knees beside her. "Mom?" His voice was small now, childlike. "Mom, I didn't..." But she was already gone, her eyes still open, staring at nothing, her hand still extended toward him. Officers Booth and Mills didn't know what had happened inside. They didn't know that the shots had stopped because the shooter's mother was dead. They maintained their positions, waiting for backup, following protocol. When SWAT arrived 12 minutes later and breached the house, they found Trevor Calloway sitting on the floor, covered in his mother's blood, rocking back and forth and mumbling incoherently. They found Patricia Calloway dead in the hallway, a single gunshot wound to the chest. And they found the gun. The ballistics would later confirm what everyone already suspected. The bullet that killed Patricia Calloway came from her son's weapon, not from police, not from crossfire. Trevor had murdered his own mother. Trevor Calloway was arrested without resistance. He didn't fight, didn't speak, just allowed himself to be handcuffed and led away from his mother's body. The investigation that followed was thorough and painful. Every angle was examined, every bullet trajectory mapped. Body camera footage from officers Booth and Mills was reviewed frame by frame. The evidence was undeniable. Patricia Calloway had been killed by a single gunshot to the chest, fired from her son's weapon before police ever returned fire. The angle, the powder burns, the wound pattern, everything confirmed she had been shot at close range during Trevor's struggle with her in the hallway. Police bullets that struck walls, furniture, the doorframe, but none had touched Patricia. Her son had killed her, and he had done it in the moment she tried to save his life. The toxicology report on Trevor showed methamphetamine and trace amounts of other substances in his system. Interviews with neighbors, friends, and Patricia's co-workers painted a picture of a woman who had sacrificed everything for a son who could not be saved. Mrs. Chen, the neighbor who had made the 911 call, broke down during her police interview. "I should have called sooner," she kept saying. "I heard them fighting before. I should have done something." But what could she have done? What could anyone have done? Patricia herself had tried everything. Love, patience, boundaries, second chances, third chances, fourth chances. Trevor's public defender tried to build a case around mental illness, around the effects of drug addiction, around police showing up and triggering his paranoia, but the evidence was overwhelming. Trevor had armed himself. Trevor had fired first. Trevor had killed his own mother. In the end, he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, attempted murder of police officers, and multiple weapons charges. The prosecution had wanted first-degree murder, but Trevor's attorney argued there was no premeditation. The shooting happened in a moment of chaotic struggle. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. At the sentencing hearing, Trevor finally spoke. His voice was brief, his heart hollow. "I didn't mean to hurt her. I thought I was protecting myself. I thought they were coming to kill me."
He never said, "I'm sorry." He never took full responsibility. Even in his confession, he framed himself as the victim of circumstances. Patricia's sister, Trevor's aunt, gave a victim impact statement that left the courtroom in silence. "My sister spent her entire life trying to..." She mouthed two words, "I'm sorry." She gave him everything, her time, her money, her hope, and in the end, the person she was trying to save was the person who killed her. She died trying to protect him from himself, and I will never forgive him for that. The case made national news briefly. "Man kills mother during police shootout," read the headlines. But the nuance was often lost in the coverage. This wasn't a case of police brutality or excessive force. This was a case of untreated mental illness, addiction, and a broken man who destroyed the one person who loved him unconditionally. Officers Booth and Mills were cleared of any wrongdoing. They had responded appropriately to an active shooter situation. They had followed protocol. They had done their jobs. But both struggled with the aftermath. Mills took a leave of absence and eventually transferred to a different department. Booth stayed on the force but requested a desk assignment. The sound of that first gunshot, the one that killed Patricia, haunted both of them. Trevor is serving his sentence at a maximum security facility in Pennsylvania. According to prison records, he has been written up multiple times for fighting with other inmates and guards. He has shown no interest in rehabilitation programs, no remorse. Patricia Calloway was buried in the cemetery beside the church she attended for 30 years. More than 200 people came to her funeral. Co-workers, friends, people whose lives she had touched during her years as a nurse, people who remembered her kindness, her generosity, her unwavering faith in second chances. Trevor was not allowed to attend. He wrote a letter requesting permission to go in handcuffs and shackles. The request was denied. At the funeral, Patricia's pastor spoke about grace, about a mother's love, about how some people cannot be saved no matter how much we love them. He spoke about the tragedy of a woman who gave everything and received violence in return. Patricia believed in redemption, he said. She believed her son could change. That belief cost her everything. But I don't think she would have changed her approach even if she had known how it would end. That was who she was. The question that haunts everyone who knew this story is simple. Could this have been prevented? Maybe if Trevor had received mental health treatment earlier, maybe if the system had flagged him as a danger when he was released from prison, maybe if Patricia had called his parole officer when his behavior escalated, maybe if she had chosen her own safety over her son's potential redemption. But maybe not, because Trevor Calloway made his own choices. He chose violence. He chose drugs. He chose to see enemies where there were none. And in the end, he chose to aim a loaded weapon while his mother stood in the way. Patricia Calloway's last words to her son were, "I'm sorry," not because she had done anything wrong, but because that's who she was, a mother who loved her son even as he killed her. Do you think there was any way to save Trevor Calloway? Or are some people beyond redemption no matter how much love they receive? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story affected you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We tell real stories about real people, the kind of stories that make you think, make you feel, and remind you that truth is often stranger and sadder than fiction.